This is kind of off the deep end a little bit into the deeper waters. So please understand, this is not something for our brand new players. This is not a thing that you are expected to interact with unless you opt in. I want to be really clear before we start this interaction that this tool that we're about to introduce is entirely opt-in.
Yeah, for anybody.
Yeah.
It's something that Jason and I are considering the advanced version of Yes and. And I want to be super clear about this. This tool is only related to inter-character development, not world development. And that's going to make real sense when I explain this. So it is not a yes and that makes our world bigger and broader or introduces information about the world that then becomes canon, becomes known world facts. It is about how our characters interact and what may be true about me and what may be true about you. Okay?
It's also not to be used third person. It's only to be used in a one-on-one engagement and not in reference to someone who is not actively part of that conversation at that moment. It'll make sense in just a second.
It'll make sense in a second. So let's imagine that Gemma and Core are sitting around the fire with a handful of people. And the story that's being told is about, somebody make something up? There's a story happening around the fire. It's about
apples and
ponies.
Which is funny because horses don't exist in Britain.
Horses don't exist in
Right.
The mythological horses that existed before the Tiberians
Yeah,
came.
That's right.
Four-legged tall cows.
Yep.
So
Tall cows.
I can say, so for Gemma and Core are married. So in theory, we know each other well, right? But sometimes you need to make stuff up on the spot, things that don't exist in your backstory. And so I may be listening to this, Gemma's listening to this stories about apples and ponies, and I have an idea, but it would be more fun if it was about him, just because I want to tell a good story. And so I go, Core,
What?
isn't it true that? Here's your key phrase, your code phrase. And what I'm doing now is I'm about to propose an idea about you
To the player.
to the player. This is code to Jason. I'm about to make some stuff up. You tell me how you want to deal with this. Core,
What?
isn't it true that your mom had a grove of apple trees that they called Ponytown?
Yes, Gemma, Ponytown is real.
Now it's true, because he said so. If he wants to be sassy or just decides that this is wrong, he says,
I believe you were mistaken. It was actually named Appleville.
isn't it true that? And the options are yes,
And
or,
I believe you
I
are
believe
mistaken.
you are mistaken. Now, this doesn't have to be a one-to-one interaction. I could say, Core,
What?
isn't it true that your mom had a grove of apple trees? And if he wants to spend a little more time with this moment, he might say something like, what do you want to know? Well, I thought I remembered a story about blah.
So, and then I have the option of either saying yes and, or I believe you're mistaken. But that interaction is not closed until one of those two responses is given. So if we're continuing that same interaction, I say, why do you want to know? And she says, blah, 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 blah. And then Jason is going, yeah, this is totally something I can add into my character's history with no big deal. Things I'm not going to say, or she's not going to say to me are, isn't it true that your father is actually the head of Clan Feldblade and you own 1 million gold pieces? That's not how this works.
Yes, and.
This is intended for building dynamics between characters. It's also not, Core, didn't you know that King Uther actually has 17 wives? Because King Uther isn't part of this conversation, so he's not target for the isn't it true that.
Right.
You did this in an example, but not just now. If you say I believe you're mistaken, shouldn't you still say and? And that's like a no and, or do you need?
You're still playing yes and, so don't just shut them down.
Right,
Give
right.
some alternative or give some detail about yourself or provide
You
some.
must have been thinking about,
Right.
So don't just shut out a conversation, I believe you're mistaken.
Right.
because that's no fun.
There's no fun added there.
That was a rock quarry.
Right, but then that's still,
That was
but
called pony.
that's a
That
no,
was called
that's a no
ponytail.
and.
Right.
That's still intending, that's still continuing the conversation and continuing the role play between the characters. And that's the intent, is to facilitate role play between characters in a way that adds to the connections between them and adds to the game world.
So it gives you opportunity to clarify the truth of your character and still allow them to tell a story about it.
And that's a
Yes.
really great segue. So
Well,
for,
actually, we need to, there's one thing we need to, I wanna use this for as an example. We pride ourselves as a game of having a culture of don't be a dick.
Rule zero, yo.
Rule 0. We have rules that we say hands-on. For some of you new players, you might not have heard this yet, but there's no even physical contact, a hug, a touch, or a high five, unless you've said to somebody, hands-on, and they have looked you in the face and said, hands-on. Hands-on can be revoked at any time. Likewise, we don't get to just make stuff up about each other without it being true. And so I'm gonna, Andy, may I say something uncomfortable in your direction?
Okay.
I am not going to walk up to Andy, or if I do, he gets to say this. If I say, Andy, isn't it true that the Merlin and Quinn have had a thing?
I believe you are mistaken.
There you go.
And, Quinn does have a brother that looks remarkably like him, but he doesn't wear a cloak.
Great.
So to be clear, for those of you guys who haven't played, she plays the Merlin and he plays Quinn, so it's not a third party.
It's not a third party, that's me and him. But it means that I don't get to, as a new character, or as an old character, a veteran character, walk up to a new character and establish something about a relationship that isn't true, makes you uncomfortable, like, doesn't work for the way you wanna tell your story. And so, you know, that's interesting to be able to decide, like, hey, I wonder what our history is together, and be like,
So on the flip side of that, an appropriate version of that would be, isn't it true that I know you from the Arcanum? Or something along those lines.
So, but with Quinn's history, it's actually possible. So,
Right.
but he wouldn't necessarily be comfortable talking about it now. So how would I say yes, but I don't wanna talk about it right now? 'Cause-
so let's do it the other way
We should talk
around.
about that in private.
Okay,
We should talk about that in private.
Okay.
I wonder, or you could do some more role-playing out loud about why do you wanna know, or
okay.
is this a conversation that should be had in public?
Like do some like
Or-
look around, like who's
Or-
here around us
Or I
right
can answer
now?
this, well, that's not really my life now, or something like that, where.
Sure,
As long as you don't say,
I'm
I
surprised you would
believe
bring
you're
that
mistaken.
up.
Right, I would, as long as you don't say the words, I believe you're mistaken.
It's still in the air.
It's
It's
assumed.
still in the air,
Okay, okay.
and it's not
But that still
confirmed.
communicates that, yes, I'm accepting that, and now let's work a story.
Or I'm considering it.
I'm
at least.
considering,
Okay,
I am considering how best to answer you in this venue.
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
But until either yes and, or I believe you are mistaken is dropped in that conversation, that topic is still up in the air. And it is always the recipient's choice. You are never forced to say yes to something that someone throws a isn't it true that at you in any way, shape, or form. If you have a character history that's already written and approved by staff, and you've already gotten the bonus skills and stuff for that, it is still okay to accept an isn't it true that. You are allowed to add on to your character history. We would appreciate it if you didn't change stuff that's already approved, but like, Quinn, isn't it true that you have a half-brother who died when you were 4? If he chooses to say yes and move on with that, he doesn't have to add that into his character history officially with staff and write it up and all that other stuff. He's just moving on with the role playing.
And if I don't know yet, I could say, well, where did you hear that? Or-
Exactly.
and then,
exactly.
Do I wanna add this to my character, or do I not? What,
Yeah.
you know, what did you hear?
What did
Absolutely.
you hear? How did you hear about that?
So you can see that there's some gray areas in this, and because everything comes back to don't be a dick, really that's the basis for all of your character interactions. So you're not gonna come up to somebody and be like, weren't our characters or wasn't I in prison with you for 17 years? And like, ease off on the hard roll there, buddy. You know.
In heart only.
Right.
Well, I think
So-
this is huge even for people who are like veteran theater, cause like, I love me some improv, but like there are times in game that I'm like, OSH, like what am I gonna do? Cause I get dropped like an improv bomb and I don't know, cause I don't wanna mess anything up.
Right.
And this is a huge like calibration and like conversation tool, love it.
Yeah.